Our teachers come in funny shapes and sizes sometimes from unexpected directions. The inspirations we get in life sometimes come from the least expected places at the most unexpected times in life. And for me, one of the first things that sent me on this trajectory towards believing the things that ultimately led to me doing and practicing solution focused brief therapy occurred during my very first grown up adult job. Now, I mean, as a kid, I had a bunch of jobs, working at a grocery store, bagging groceries and delivering pizza and silly stuff like that, paper route and that kind of thing. But my first grown up adult job was in my last year of college. I worked at a brain trauma treatment center. Now, these were people who have had serious closed head brain trauma, and their day to day living in their life had been impacted significantly. And I needed a job, and it was the hardest job, maybe to this day, I've ever had. But it was a job that required the most compassion and the most belief in people. And what I had to do, the way that this place worked, so it was a residential living facility, and each resident shared an apartment with another resident, and then each resident had their own worker to kind of work through them. And if you had a closed head injury, you could accidentally do something to put your life at risk. Like, you're going to cook a meal and you forget the oven is on, and then something gets on fire. So my job basically was to sit with my person all day and make sure that they were okay. And people had varying levels of functionality. Like some people, you could barely tell that they had a brain injury, and some people were in a very vegetative state. And it was a very eye-opening learning experience. Like I said, it's my first kind of grown-up real job, and I learned a lesson that sticks with me to this day and impacts the way I do solution-focused brief therapy. One of the guys who lived at this place was a guy who I'll call Bill. And Bill, he was a professional firefighter in a forested area of the United States, and a tree had fallen on Bill's head and basically removed all of Bill's capacities to have a normal life. He was as close to being in that kind of coma state that I can imagine, and my job was to sit with Bill and kind of keep him company all day. The nurses would come in, and in the morning the nurses would come in and they would lift him and change his bed dressings and put on day clothes and put him in a wheelchair. And my job was to wheel him into the living area and sit with him, while he just sat in front of a television. About lunchtime, someone would come in and prepare lunch for Bill, and my job was to feed Bill and then clean up after the lunch. In the mid-afternoon, someone would come in and take Bill into the bathroom and help him clean himself and do those things you do in a bathroom that are quite private. And then at about dinner time, someone else would come in and cook a meal for Bill. And then I would help him eat the meal, and I would clean him up and wheel him back into the living area. And then at about bedtime, nurse would come back in, put bed dressings onto Bill, and then put him to bed. And then I would just sit while Bill was in bed waiting for my shift to end, and then someone else would come in and watch him. He was the kind of guy that you couldn't leave unsupervised at any moment. Bill's vocabulary existed of about 7 words. If he worked with you, he would repeat the same word. He would say, nice, 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 like that, nice, nice, nice. That was the only thing he ever said. And he would make faces, but that was really the extent of it. And that was Bill's life. Until one day, something completely unexpected, this is totally a true story, something completely unexpected happened that was, if I wasn't there, I'm not sure I would have believed it. So, as you can imagine, this was that guy's life. It was very boring, very dull. So it was a very kind of low stress, kind of boring job for us to have. You're working with these people who have these closed head injuries that can't talk, can't do anything. So in those hours, after they've eaten and everything's cleaned up, they're just sitting watching TV. Me and the other residence worker would be very bored. So this guy is playing dominoes. And he says to me, Elliot, would you like to play dominoes with me? Now, I mean, I'm 21, maybe, young kid, first job. I don't know if this is okay. I said, I don't know if I should play dominoes with you. He said, it's okay. You can play dominoes. Bill is in his wheelchair. I wheel Bill over to the table with me. He sits next to me playing dominoes. Now, I don't know how to play dominoes. I'm unfamiliar with how to play dominoes. It's not something that I grew up doing. So this coworker is teaching me how to play dominoes, and I'm playing. Those of you who don't know, dominoes is the little, those little cubes, and you match the numbers and that kind of thing. So he's teaching me how to play dominoes, and I'm playing dominoes, and then I get a call from the front office. So when I get the call from the front office, I get up from my seat, leaving Bill sitting next to the table, and I go take the call from the supervisor. When I come back, shockingly, Bill had played a domino, and he had played it perfectly appropriately. Now, this is a person that is as close to a vegetative state as you can imagine, and Bill has played a domino, and he had played it appropriately. Now, I looked at my coworker and said, is that the right play? And he said, I don't know if it's the right play because I can't see your dominoes, but it works. What he just did is allowed in the rules. And we were both amazed. We had never seen Bill do anything that could be described as kind of an independent action. And I've been working there for several months with this person. So when it became my turn again, curious to see if it would happen again, he did it again. That whole day, we played dominoes, and Bill played. Now, I can't tell you that he played like the greatest domino player in the world. I can just tell you he understood the rules, and he was able to play the dominoes, and it shocked me and this coworker. In fact, we were so shocked that we made sure to document this. So part of this job was all about, you had to document every single thing that happened. So we made sure to document this so that the therapy team, the physical therapist and the occupational therapist and the behavioral therapist knew what had happened, just in case it meant anything. Now, again, I'm a 21-year-old kid. I have no idea. I'm just documenting. In case this means anything, here you guys go. When the nurses and the medical staff and the behavioral staff and the occupational therapy staff and the physical therapy staff, when they found out what he had done, they asked themselves an incredibly important question. What else can he do? If Bill can do this, what else can he do? They had fallen into the trap and thinking because this man had a closed head injury and his functionality had been reduced so low that they weren't challenging him. They weren't expecting him to do anything. Now, as a result of him playing dominoes, they're asking themselves, what else can he do? So they start putting tasks in front of him, which they were not doing before. Learning how to brush his teeth on his own, learning how to hold a spoon and feed himself. None of this was happening before, but because they saw his functionality, they began to ask themselves, what else can he do? They increased the level of expectancy. You guys have heard me talk about solution-focused brief therapy a lot, and you've heard me say that two important ingredients is hope and expectancy. And prior to Bill playing dominoes, no one expected anything of him, so he didn't do anything. Once he showed us he had a skill, which was playing dominoes, then it's up to us to start to wonder what other skills do you have and continue to raise the bar incrementally and expect that he could perform. Now, I would love to tell you that after, 2 or 3 years of this, or however long, Bill recovered fully from his brain injury and walked out of that treatment center. But that's not what happened. But I can tell you, Bill increased the things he could do by a lot. He was never the same version of himself that he could be before because the brain injury was so severe. But he was never the version of himself that he was when we weren't expecting anything out of him. He just continued and continued and continued to grow and build skills. His vocabulary increased. His motor skills increased. And I came away from that shortly after interacting with that and watching that incredible growth take place. I graduated with my degree, left that job to pursue grad school and do some other things. But I always took the lesson away from Bill that every single person deserves our expectancy because every single person has skills, traits, and tasks that will allow them to perform beyond what we think they can. And I think sometimes as psychotherapists, as solution focused therapists, we get in our own way thinking, oh, the people can't answer these questions, they can't do this, can't do that. I never entertain the idea of can't anymore, because I watched a man do something that everybody in the world would have told me couldn't do. And it reminds me of an Nelson Mandela quote, everything is impossible until it's done. I never entertain the idea of can't anymore when I'm working with clients, because I watched that guy Bill rebuild some skills in his life that were thought beyond his brain's capacity due to the injury he'd sustained. So I hope that story inspires you as much as it inspired me going through it, because that happened more than 15 years ago. And I carry that lesson with me to this very day as I do my work with solution focused brief therapy. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's a little bit longer than my normal video, but it was just on my heart to share. You know, it's not just about education, it's about inspiration. We learn best when we're inspired to do the thing we're working about. So it's only fair that I share with you guys the things that have inspired me. So thank you so much for watching. And if you don't mind, please give me a share. I really like to spread the word of spread the messages contained in these videos. If you're watching this on some place other than my website, shoot on over to elliottconnie.com. I got loads of videos and free stuff, and if you sign up for my newsletter, you keep up to date with my trainings and events and things that I'm doing. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video.